Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. Ever try to buy a car online and end up in a parking lot with a stranger and some blind trust? That era is over. Now with Secure Purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your car. It's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery, it's all built in. This is the modern way to buy your next ride on eBay. eBay. Things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weissoon, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for today's modern hunter. Mossberg, American-built, American-strong. Vineyard Max, deer attractants created for the aroma of success, game feeders, and other hunting products. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. And the Choctaw Hunting Lodge, home of some of the finest hunting in North America. Now, here's Larry.
Having the opportunity to sit around this afternoon with Mr. Lee Newton in his office, home, kind of the central part of the state of Texas. And for those of you who do not know Lee Newton, I feel sorry for you because you really need to know this gentleman in so many different ways. But among other things, besides calling him a dear friend, Lee has a tremendous collection of Ruger No. 1s and tremendous amount of knowledge about the guns and everything having to do with them. One of the things that I was sitting around this afternoon with Lee about was talking about the Club 21 guns. Now, these were guns that Mr. Bill Ruger presented at the Club 21 in New York to a select group of writers and a bunch of other dignitaries. Is that right, Lee?
No, I don't know that the presentations were done at the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
But that was the kind of the code word within the Ruger company that they used to designate special rifles for special people.
Oh, okay.
So that's where that term came
So that's where
about.
that, and evidently
And it was because that's where Jack O'Connor liked to be taken when he came to New York City.
Well, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on that. I don't think it's in existence anymore, is it?
Yeah, I think it went out of business a few years ago. But
Oh,
it was,
shucks.
We need to research if Robert Ruark actually went there, and I bet he did.
I got a feeling, I know you spent some time in New York, of course, and I got a feeling that he was one of those guys who happened to be there and maybe do a little bit more research on some of the others.
He was a New York newspaper writer, wasn't he?
I think that's exactly right. Yes, sir. I think he was. And I know that he had several clubs there that he liked to frequent, and I got a feeling that was probably one of them. But the Club 21 guns, and that now knowing that was the code word, who was the first one? And wonder why do you think Mr. Ruger did this?
I think Bill Ruger always wanted to make engraved firearms, and he tried to do it with a single six, and he always did it kind of like Colonel Colt did, presenting engraved firearms, and he was just the writers who wrote up very favorable test fires of the Ruger No. 1 in all of the magazines in October of 1967 are basically the people who got these. Okay. There was one guy that didn't give a favorable write-up. That was Les Bowman, and he didn't get one.
And he was an outfitter in Wyoming, among other things.
But you can go back to October of nearly every magazine: Outdoor Life, Sports Afield, Field and Stream, Guns and Ammo, the magazines of the day, and one of the writers would have a test fire, actually the prototypes, in there, and they would all be very favorable. Although most of them didn't shoot well, the prototypes they were testing. And then, John Amber wrote it up in Gun Digest and all that. So, that was the guys that got them. Jack O'Connor, Warren Page, Pete Brown, John Amber, Peter Barrett of True, the Man's Magazine,
that's right.
Pete Kuloff of Argosy. That's the ones that kind of come to mind right now. Roger Barlow got one because he wrote up a article in Guns and Ammo, and he actually took a prototype rifle on a bear hunt. Probably shot the first animal ever shot when he used a 30-06 number X4 to go bear hunting with.
That's pretty cool, by golly.
Yeah, he wrote that up. Interestingly, the whole plan was October of 1966 introduction. Well, Ted Trueblood jumped the gun and published his #1 article in the May 1966 issue of True.
Oh, really?
He didn't get one either, so
He didn't.
I don't know what happened. But, he used a prototype 270, and I've not been in all my research been able to figure out which prototype that is. I don't know where it's at. And then one of the other writers wrote up that he'd saw Bill Ruger shoot an antelope with a prototype 270. So there's one of the unknowns we haven't uncovered yet. What was that prototype 270? The other prototypes, we pretty well know what they are because they were pictured in magazines or pictured in catalogs and so on. But the 270 I hadn't figured out
You
yet.
haven't figured out which one?
Unless it was Mr. Ruger's own serial number 270,
That could be
which
a
was a
possibility,
270.
right?
And by the way, we don't know where that rifle is today. It was engraved by A.A. White with WBR on the side of it. It's pictured in Wilson's book in numerous places. And I've been on a hunt for it and hadn't found it yet.
I got a feeling, Lee, if it's not going to be found if you had found it, because I know when you decide you go after these things, you have done just an absolute job of it.
There's one rifle I found in 1980. I bought it in 2009. It took 29 years to get it. And it wasn't anything special other than it was a 2-digit varmint rifle, serial number 73. But 29 years to get that one.
That's being persistent. That's being way persistent.
The hardest part is to find them.
Right.
Then the next hardest part is to get them acquired.
I can see that. Now, you've got several of the Club 21 guns. I have been privileged to see them, and actually I'm going to be doing an article about some of the guns. I think we'll probably try to select maybe, say, 5 of the guns and feature those in an article coming up in the 26, I guess it is.
26.
Gun Digest, but we'll probably try to do a little bit of other stuff about them. Tell me about some of the guns that you have, some of the Club 21s.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to acquire them all of the writers with the exception of John Amber's.
Really?
And John Amber's is allegedly buried with it. Okay?
Would be appropriate,
That's
yes, sir.
information that we acquired over the years from Steve Vogel, who was at the service, who said that at the end of that service, they put that rifle in his casket. Okay?
That's pretty cool.
So,
That's
John
way
Amber
cool.
serial number 9, 21 Club rifle is not available.
Not
To my
available.
knowledge of the writers, I have all the others.
Wow.
So, you want me to name them off the top of my head? I can't. It's hard. But there's the big 3 of the days: Outdoor Life, Sports Field, and Field and Stream. That was Jack O'Connor, Pete Brown, and Warren Page.
And Warren Page, yeah.
And there was Roger Barlow, who wrote for Guns and Ammo. There was Peter Barrett. There was Pete Kuloff. Those are the ones that I'm remembering right now.
Yes, sir.
That I have. And then, John Amber's was, and they're all very low serial numbers. Amber's was 9. Page's was 13. Keith's, we forgot Elmer Keith.
Yes, I was
Elmer
going to.
Keith's was 15. Barlow's was 18. Kuloff's was 19. O'Connor's was 20. Pete Brown's was 23. And Peter Barrett's was 33. And those gentlemen had all the other Rugers of those serial numbers too.
That was their number, and whenever they came, whatever
Yeah.
Bill Rigger came out with, that's what he
That's
was
what
going to.
they got at the time.
Was their number.
The other interesting one that I've always believed, there was a writer named Larry Kohler
Oh yes.
who wrote a lot of early articles on the number one, but he passed away in August of '67.
Yes, sir.
So his serial number 22, which was his number, and he had written that I'm looking forward to getting my 7mm Remington Magnum, which is what number 22 is. I actually have it too.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Lee.
But it looks like it was put together late because it would sit there as an action, to be engraved for him, and then he dies. So it's the fact that, what do we do with this thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ruger put it together and sold it, but it wasn't engraved. You would have thought serial number 21, which was Robert Chatfield Taylor's rifle, would have been engraved, but it's not. And the factory records indicated it should have been a 21 Club gun, but somehow it didn't get engraved. He wrote up a really good article on the test fire of the Ruger number one in Guns magazine, I believe, was the magazine it was in. And interestingly, though, that rifle is a 7x65R, of which Ruger made up for him.
Yes, but he liked some. I mean, he liked different
He
types
was-
of
they
calibers.
were,
He
yep.
wasn't. He also came out from into the 416.
416 Taylor.
Is
I believe it was his. Yes.
Yeah, I've actually got copies of some letters that he and O'Connor did that were sooner or later I'll be putting together in form of a book kind of thing. But I remember some of that now that you're talking about it.
Yep. But I don't know that a number one was ever made in a 416 Taylor.
No,
Them 77s were, and I think there's only about 12 of them done.
Really,
I don't remember ever owning one, but I've seen them.
you've seen them.
If it'd been a number one, I'd have been after it.
Now, what made these guns unique was the numbers to begin with. I mean,
Well, the fact that they were factory engraved presentation rifles with the gold initials of the rider on one side and some animal vignette on the other
Yes, sir.
side. Most of them were sheep.
yes, sir.
There was a grizzly bear. Ruger's own rifle has an elk on it. With the exception of the Peter Barrett rifle, which was the very first one shipped in September '67, and it's engraved by an engraver that I've not yet been able to identify. I guess I need to work on it harder because that record has got to be in the factory of who that action
so,
got shipped
yeah.
out to, and then
Yes.
returned for finishing. But we don't know who engraved it, but you can definitely look at it and tell it's not an A white engraved rifle because all of those are very similar style. They were similar in style to what we call the NRA show rifles, because Ruger had this idea of engraved rifles in March of '67, and they had 3 receivers done by A.A. White with a sheep, an elk, and a bear to use for the '67 NRA show. But it's never clear whether they had those rifles made up or whether any of that was ever exhibited. But there is correspondence about the NRA show rifles.
Right.
I have 2 of those. The third one is still in the Ruger estate, to my knowledge.
Good
The other
gosh.
2 just had remained at the factory and were sold in years past through that Ruger auction.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to have enough information to know what they were. Because I had the correspondence from, Larry Wilson and Ed Nolan from the date of doing those rifles. And I think they charged them $125 a piece to engrave those receivers.
Oh my goodness. Now, let's talk a little bit about the engraver, because you mentioned A.A. White, who obviously his work is phenomenal because I've seen it on the rifles themselves. But
Alvin White was one of the engravers of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. He and John Warren were probably the 2 best. And with the A.A. White Engravers, Inc. was a company of which Larry Wilson was the business manager of, and I believe that Herb Glass was the president of. So there was the connection back to Bill Ruger, because
yes,
Herb Glass and Bill Ruger were good friends from way back. So they're the ones, they engraved, Ruger had at least 3 rifles of the date engraved for governors of Connecticut, of New Hampshire. One of the very first ones that I've never been able to find it but I know the serial number and what it looks like was one of the first governors of New Hampshire that when the number one came out. Later there was one engraved for the Prince Abdul Reza.
Yes.
That, from my knowledge, that rifle's still not around. I actually have pictures of it. I actually have the sketch that Larry Wilson made up for Bill Ruger to approve for AOI engraving. We'll get a picture of that sometime.
Yes, we will. I'd love to.
I can't remember if Larry gave it to me or he charged me for it. But all of the correspondence he just gave to me.
That is so cool to have that, the provenance.
And Larry Wilson's own rifle had RLW engraved on the receiver by Alvin White, but it has no scrolls or anything else. It's just gold inlay.
Just inlay.
And it's pictured in his book, Steel Canvas. And he had it done up. It's a 1A and 7 mag. He took it on, he took it to Africa and shot a lion with it. And then he wrote the book, Theodore Roosevelt Outdoorsman, which
Right.
in my knowledge was his first book in about 1970. And he's probably published more coffee table books than anybody, only down to Ruger and his guns.
Right.
And anybody interested in Rugers that doesn't have a copy of Ruger and His Guns by Larry Wilson is missing out on a lot of knowledge and some really great pictures.
Oh, some of the photography in there is just phenomenal. And
Larry told me that he lived in Mr. Ruger's house for 6 months working on that book. Had free reign to take pictures of everything he wanted to do.
that book is just a phenomenal book. I mean, even if you didn't like Rugers, and I can't imagine anybody that doesn't, but even if you didn't like Rugers, the photography in there is phenomenal, and the quality of the guns and everything that goes along with it.
Well, it's all Mr. Ruger's guns.
Oh, yeah. I guess if you're the boss, you can say, okay, I want it done this way.
I never did hear from Larry much about what the interaction was with Mr. Ruger and him, and trying to do that book. But Mr. Ruger was proud of that book. I do kind of have that feeling.
Yeah.
He liked it, and I don't know how he couldn't like it.
To me, it's almost like a piece of art when you get right down to it. And I'll pull that thing out every once in a while, and I have to put it away from right in front of me so I don't drool on the darn thing.
Seems like Larry told me there was supposed to have been a sequel to it, an updating from it was written in '96, if I remember correctly. And, somehow with Mr. Ruger's death and, Larry's now passed away,
Right.
It just never got done.
Oh, shucks. What a shame. That would have been absolutely fantastic to see a follow-up on that one.
Well, one of the interesting things in Larry's books is he mentions in his chapter about Ruger No. 1s about the 21 Club rifles
Yes.
and who all got them. And I've mentioned this before. He lists Charles Askins as having been a recipient, of which Charles Askin wrote an article up. He should have, could have been. But with all the records and research I've done, we can't find out which one it is. We don't know the serial number. And as I said, we were talking about earlier, Tom actually had lunch with Colonel Askins.
Yes, Colonel Askins,
when
yes.
in his advanced age, and he did not have any recollection of ever having an engraved Ruger No. 1 rifle. He even remember how many Germans he shot during World War II, but he did not remember that No. 1 rifle. So I don't think he got one, but it's still confusing to me why Wilson thought he did, because he had records on all that.
Right.
It hadn't turned up. One of the numbers that Askins had was serial number 86 in some Rugers. And,
Yes, sir.
But serial number 86 is not an engraved Ruger No. 1. And it didn't go to Askins, so.
Very interesting. I got to spend one afternoon with him years and years ago in South Texas on a dove hunt. I actually got invited to come down and hunt doves, and he was in there. And I got to sit around late that afternoon and listen to stories more than anything else. And I wish I'd recorded some of them.
Was he a shotgun shot?
He was pretty darn good now.
His dad was a shotgun
Oh,
shot.
God, yes. I remember reading things about
The
that.
Major Askins, I believe, was.
I think so, yes, sir. Well, he didn't miss very many times that I could tell when we were there, but they sat up and told stories that night, and I wish I'd have been able to record them.
Anybody that hadn't read his book, Unrepentant Sinner, is missing out on some history.
Those were interesting times when he came along.
Yeah.
Those very interesting times. Now, you mentioned the big three to start with in terms of O'Connor and Brown and Warren Page.
Yes.
And what rounds or what calibers or rounds were those in? Do you?
Oh, wow. O'Connor's is a 375 H&H Magnum.
Oh, it is.
And when I first heard that, trying to trace it down, I said, how can that be? It has to be a 270.
Yeah, you would think so.
And no, the gentleman, Hank Kaufman, was a friend of O'Connor's that knew about all of his guns. He said, no, it's a 375 H&H Magnum with a moose engraved on the side of it. Well, I knew it had a sheep because I'd seen a picture of it in his book, The Hunting Rifle.
Right.
But I didn't know it was a 375. And then when you get it, it actually has a beaver tail forearm on it. It's not an Alex Henry forearm like the Tropicals. And it is the only Tropical with a beaver tail forearm to my knowledge. I asked Steve Vogel one time, and when he was alive, I said, why did he do that? He said, that's the way Jack wanted it.
That's yeah. That would have been
So
enough.
that's how it got done. The Page rifle is actually a 222 Remington 1B.
Really?
And there's a picture in the back of his book, the accurate rifle with Mrs. Page shooting that rifle.
Right.
And you can actually see the WP on the side of it. And then Pete Brown's was a 7mm rim mag 1B. And so that's what they were. There's a lot of 7 mags. Amber's rifle was a 7 mag. Kuloff's rifle was a 7 mag. Kohler's rifle was a 7 mag if he'd have gotten it. But there's 2 222s. Barrett's and Page's rifles are both 222s. Keith's rifle was a 375 H&H Magnum. And we talked earlier, Keith's rifle actually has Elmer Keith engraved out on the side of it. And it was one of the very last ones made in April of '69. So
Yeah,
all the rest of them just have initials.
had initials, right?
Yeah, and O'Connor's has got the JOC with the apostrophe, whereas the rest of them are just 2 initials. Not remember. But anyway, the Peter Barrett rifle is an enigma just because of who engraved this thing. It's not a very good quality of engraving, to tell you the truth. You know, the animal is a bobcat, and it's not a very good bobcat. But the thing A.A. White could do, his animals are just unreal.
It's like a photograph.
It
They're
is.
absolutely, totally accurate in terms of anatomy and postures and everything else.
One of the interesting things, there was at least the NRA show rifle had a bear, and Elmer Keith's had a bear. And Larry had sent me one of his business cards, you know, in the 80s. And on the back of his business card was this engraving etching of a bear. Okay, I never knew which one it was, okay, whether it was Keith's rifle or the NRA show rifle. And then when I acquired the show rifle, I figured out that it wasn't it. So when I acquired the Keith rifle, it was it. That rubbing, or whatever they call it, when they make an impression on the back of Larry's cards off the Keith rifle. Those 2 bears were different. One of them was kind of humped over, and one of them was kind of upright.
Yeah.
Or not standing upright, but in a more upright position. What else?
You know, to me, the stories can go on and on and on. Do you know if these guys actually hunted and shot their rifles very much, or the riders?
Jack O'Connor's was shot. They were all scoped.
They were all
They were all
scoped.
scoped, and I'm sure he shot it. It's got enough dents in it that, you know, he carried it
He
around.
carried it
I'm
around,
not
so.
aware of any of them ever hunting with them, which is something we need to do.
I know, it's something we really need to do. We've talked about several different projects, and one of these we're going to try to get done. We're trying to Lee and I have talked a little bit about taking a select group of people, a small group of people, getting out on hunts with these particular rifles and filming them and then adding all the provenance, because a lot of times they're photographs and, as you mentioned, they're letters and, you know, when these guns were shipped and all those kind of things. To me, that's something that's got to be done, because if not, it'll be lost. And
It's history, and, you know, Jack O'Connor died in 1978, which
Right.
is nearly 50 years ago.
Yes, and we're
I mean,
still
it's
talking
47
about-
years ago, and
right.
you know, his writings are timeless, although they're very dated. You know, he didn't need anything bigger than a 4-power scope.
No.
He allowed one source said, well, 6-power might be all right for varmints. I'm sitting there saying, I can't even see anything through a 4-power scope anymore. And just a plain old crosswire. You
Just
know,
a-
how did they do it?
I've got the old model '99 Savage 300 Savage that I shot my first mule deer with back in 1970. So we're talking about 50, almost 56 years ago. And it still has the same old K4 Weaver scope on it. Matter of fact, I shot a doe with it last year, and I'll probably try to shoot something with it again this year, just out of nostalgia, if nothing else. But that's a project we really need to take a real serious look at. And I've already talked to some people, and I'm trying to talk to some more to try to get this done. To, like I said, just take a select group of people and utilize those rifles and do it, not necessarily a then and now, but some of that as well too.
Well, it's not going to hurt them to shoot them.
No,
that's what Bill Ruger said they were made for.
Exactly. Well, I'm working, as I mentioned, on a story for shooting. For Gun Gun Digest. For Gun Digest.
2026 issue.
Phil Massaro, please forgive me. I know you're listening, and I apologize, but for that one, and we need to go out and do some photography on those guns right now. And Lee, you do sell Ruger number ones.
I sell Ruger number ones. I probably sell more Ruger number ones than anybody in the country.
If
I don't sell more, I've got more.
Well, I think you may have more, and I know you probably, there's no question about selling more. If somebody's interested in a Ruger number one, now you've got some that are vintage, if you want to call them that, and you've got some that are, they're just now coming off. And with that mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about the wood before we get. There was a stage years ago when Ruger number ones had great wood on them, and then they were pretty plain. That's changed recently.
Well, I can tell you the history of the wood.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about it.
1967, when they were introduced in April. First one shipped, nearly everything shipped in 67 was pretty pitifully plain.
Really?
And they sold for $265, and people didn't care for the wood. But somewhere in 68, they got into some really good wood. So all of your 1968, 69 production guns are generally going to have really nice wood. And then it kind of started tapering off through the early 70s. In 76, when they put the year of, made in the 200th year of American liberty, they got some really good wood again.
Right.
So the good wood kind of continued on 76, 77, 78, 9, 3 or 4, 5 years. And then all of a sudden you got in the 80s and it got plain again. Okay? You went through most of the 80s with fairly plain wood.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, you'll see some really pretty wood. Okay? And then it stayed pretty good through the 90s, and then even through the 2000s. But somewhere around 2016, it really got pitifully plain.
Yeah.
Okay?
I've got one or two of those as well.
All those, and most people know that in 2013, Lipsey's became the exclusive distributor of Ruger number ones, and you usually only had a limited offering of stuff that had never been done before. I mean, they weren't making any more 1B 22 250s, and there's some really unique stuff with stainless and walnut, new calibers that have never been done before, and then some old ones. So anyway, there's some really neat rifles out there starting in, but last year, a year and a half ago now, the wood on them is incredible. They went to a new manufacturer in Missouri, our new wood supplier in Missouri that's supplying American walnut, and it is incredible. So if you find any of these guns made in the last year and a half, you better jump on them because you're not going to find wood like that again when it runs out.
Well, let's talk about one other gun before we get away from here. There was as I recall, a Lee Newton number one. Let's talk about that one a little bit.
Well, that's kind of a funny story because Jason Klossner at Lipsey's, who does all these specials, totally surprised me with that. Okay? Jason and his family had been up deer hunting at the ranch, and we were sitting around talking about number ones, and we talked about how that Lipsey's first exclusive was a stainless walnut number 1A and 7.62 by 39, and how that group of stainless walnut rifles had really gotten popular.
Yeah.
And, everybody wants them. Some people try to collect them all.
Right.
And then in 2006, he came out with what he called an AH configuration, all right, which was a 24-inch A-weight barrel, no sights, Alexander form. Mm-hmm. And when I saw they were going to make that, I said, I got to have one of them, okay, because I had two rifles that Lynn Brownell had made up. One of them was an AH 24-inch barrel in 270. One of them was a 25-inch barrel, A-weight barrel, And I thought, man, that's the thing. So I called up and I said, I don't want one of those. And Jason said, oh, by the way, some of them might be Circassian walnut. A few of them. I ordered one, I got it, and it was plain, pitiful American walnut. So they had 22 left in stock. I ordered all 22 of them. So that kind of put me on the radar with Lipsey's. And we got those in. Tom and I started opening them up, and 19 of them we decided were Circassian. Well, Jason said there was only about a dozen. I said, how did I get 19?
Yeah.
But we had some really pretty ones in that batch. But that AH 25-06 was another one of the Lipsey's exclusives that's just really a fine hunting rifle.
Yes.
So then Jason puts two and two together along after we did the Joe Clayton 280 Ackley Improved.
Right.
We're going to do stainless walnut. We're going to do a K1H, AH configuration. We're going to do a 280 Ackley, and that turned out to be the CLN exclusive.
How fantastic.
And it was a total surprise at SHOT Show a year ago. They said, now, Lee, you need to be around here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Well, I thought we was going to do a podcast or a video thing.
Yeah.
So I'm there, and all of a sudden I start looking around me, and there's a bunch of people. Craig Boddington's there.
Oh, my goodness.
I said, wait a minute, what's happening? About that time, Jason pulls that rifle out, which was CLN 001. And I thought, oh, my God. And he said, well, what do you think that wood? And I said, I already looked at wood. It doesn't take me long to look at good wood. It was pretty spectacular. And again, that whole group of guns were pretty spectacular in the wood department. And that's when they'd gone to this new manufacturer. And all the ones they've made since, last year, the last year and a half, have had, some of them, the wood is just indescribable. Even the plainer ones are way prettier than anything you'll ever see. So 280 Ackley Improved is an old man 7 mag.
It is. That's absolutely fantastic ground.
Doesn't kick, it's not loud.
Nope.
I went out one day to shoot mine, and I forgot my earmuffs. I popped off one, and I said, oh gosh, I forgot my earmuffs. And I said, that wasn't all that bad. I shot it 2 more times. But I mean, we can't hear anyway, but if it'd been a 7 mag, my ears would have been ringing.
Oh yeah,
So
for
it's not
days.
it's not that loud. The recoil is not that bad. And you get 7 mag performance if you'll just.
To me, that is an absolutely fabulous round, and I've got 1 or 2 of them, and I'm going to have another one before too very long. I got to sell a couple of other guns I've got, so I can get one more of these from the CLN numbers. By golly, I had the opportunity here while we're here to pick up an older rifle that it's an 0270 that I think is probably going to go into my collection rather than what I had intended to do with it. And then also the 93x62, which is a RSI. I love the little RSIs, and the wood on those are just phenomenal as well too. And then of course those CLN, they're pretty special in a lot of different ways.
They are. I shot one duck with mine last year, and I'm going to shoot a bunch more this year. It's going to get hunted more this year than it did last year.
Lee has taken some outstanding bucks here probably for a long time, but particularly in the last couple of years, and I say three or 4 years. And I know you've got some planned this year that you've got some special hunts coming up. So I want to come back with you a little bit later, and we're going to talk about some of those hunts once we get here in maybe a couple of months or so. But we do need to go out and get some photographs for this article and a couple other projects I'm working on with the Ruger No. 1s. And Lee, thank you so much for joining us around the campfire today, and look forward to seeing you before too very long right back here.
We'll do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, join us right back here next week, and no telling where we'll be, but truly appreciate you being with us. Thank you very much.
DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn has also been brought to you by The Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, the Texas Wildlife Association, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.